friends, happy new year. I hope you've taken some time so far to recharge, fill your own cup, refocus, and set some brand new intentions for 2025. That's what I've done. That and nap a lot. Like, you don't understand. I've been sleeping like 12 to 15 hours a day, every day for like 2 weeks straight. But amidst all of that, I did take some time to paint on actual canvas for the first time in a very long time, crocheted a cute little plushy dinosaur, cut and colored my own hair. I know it's a choice, we're going with it. And also I went on this amazing Jeep ride that was so fast it made me see the face of God. Don't ask. But coming on to this video, one of my biggest resolutions this year is to paint more because surprise, surprise, I freaking love to paint. And this is a resolution I've had pretty much every single year, but I feel like 2024 was the first time that I really successfully achieved this goal in a way that helped me feel like I had painted a lot more and felt a lot more productive, successful, and just as a better artist overall. Today, I want to share with you exactly how I achieved this apparently lofty seeming goal, what worked for me, what didn't work, and how you can make tiny little changes that will really help you achieve this goal in a productive way. We'll talk about efficiency, how to set useful goals that you can actually achieve in this year, and also little things that you may not even have considered before. If all of that sounds awesome, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel for more art content in 2025. You can always come say hello on social media. Comment below your biggest art goal for this year so we can push each other and motivate each other. And yeah, let's do it. Here's how you can actually paint more in 2025. Look, I'll be the first to admit it. I used to be a traditional art Puritan. I started drawing with pencils on paper and then moved on to paint on canvas, and the whole time I would hate on digital art because it was easier and therefore it was obviously not real art. And guess what that did? It kept me stuck at the level that I was at. I could manage a half-decent photo study, but anything original I created was ugly, poorly thought out, and just did not make me happy at all. That was until I swallowed my pride and bought myself a very cheap drawing tablet back in 2016, and let me tell you, that changed the game for me completely. So my first tip for today is to go digital, because as a resource, digital painting is virtually infinite. You see, the reason that I didn't improve very much with traditional painting was because I was constantly worried about running out of art supplies and having to replenish them, or not being able to save a canvas because I made one bad brush mark and now the whole thing is ruined, or not having the time or space to set up a mini art studio and running out of time that it takes to let a layer of paint dry. There was 8 million reasons, real reasons, not just excuses, for why I wasn't able to paint very often. And the fact of the matter is, you literally cannot get better at painting unless you paint a lot. It's like any other skill, you have to practice over and over again in order to see any improvement. And with how expensive art supplies can be to replenish, it is just not a feasible option for a lot of beginner hobbyist artists. When I made the switch to digital painting, however, it was a massive eye-opener. It felt like what I imagined those cows feel like when they're let out into the farm on the first day of spring after a long cold winter trapped up in the barn. Digital art is much cheaper, much quicker, and much easier to work with. You make a bad brush mark? Hit undo. Your colors look too dark? Use a levels adjust. Your proportions seem completely off? Let me introduce you to my little friend. Does this mean you should abandon traditional painting completely? Hell nah, I still do all of my concepting in my sketchbook. I spent the last 2 weeks painting this on a literal canvas. However, when it comes to skills training with things like proportions and composition and color theory, I would always use digital painting because I would be too scared to ruin a page or like a canvas because I don't quite understand the concept yet. Obviously, that is a mental block that I need to deal with, and it comes from a lack mentality, but working through that takes time and effort, and we want to get better and paint more now. Welcome to Aries Nation. So the quickest and easiest way to get around these blocks is to get yourself a drawing tablet. You don't need an expensive one, just grab the cheapest one you can find. There's tons of open source software that really work wonders. I paint on Critter as a fairly experienced artist, and it works perfectly wonderfully for me. You don't need expensive software or like a Wacom Cintiq or anything. Just grab what you can find, get what you can afford, and just get painting. Now watch me contradict everything I just said, because my second tip is to explore a new art medium that you've never worked with before. This applies to those of us who paint digitally all the time and are just plain bored with how we do things. Boredom is a very real thing, and it can be extremely detrimental to your creativity because not only does it drain you of all motivation, it can also actually be really damaging to your brain. As living creatures, we are hardwired to constantly look for evolution. And evolution in this day and age is not just about adapting to your surroundings, it is about seeking out new, mindful ways of doing things. Doubly so, I think, as an artist, because the whole point of creativity is innovation. Your job as an artist is to bring something to this world that doesn't exist already. But when you paint the same way over and over again, your brain sort of runs out of motivation. Like with starting a new habit, right? Say you want to work out twice a week, and you tell yourself, if I work out twice this week, I'll buy myself a sweet treat. And that works wonderfully for a few weeks because there is that motivation. But then once you successfully work out twice a week, a couple months down the line, the lure of the sweet treat starts to lose its appeal. Why? Because it is now too familiar a pathway in your mind. However, this is where people sort of start to fall off the wagon a little bit when it comes to a new habit, because we assume that that initial motivation will be enough to carry us through the entire process until the new habit we're trying to develop becomes a permanent feature in our life. But here's the thing. Motivation is really just our fascination for new and shiny things. And as such, we have to keep upping the ante with our motivation as we up our skills. One way to do this is, of course, to up the reward, but that can be detrimental, damaging, and also borderline addictive. The other way to keep the motivation coming, however, is to up the challenge factor. Our brains love a puzzle. Think about it. Have you ever come across a Where's Waldo that you've been able to resist? I haven't, because we are hardwired to seek the dopamine high that comes from achieving something new. Our brains love a challenge because they love creating and reinforcing new neural pathways. This is how we evolve as individuals, and more importantly, this is how we survive and thrive in an ever-changing world. So now, how do we translate this all into making more art? The answer is simple. We create new skills challenges. My favorite way to do this is to explore an art medium that I've never worked with before. The more different it is to how you usually create, the better. If you constantly paint digitally, try watercolors. If you do a lot of technical art, try something like acrylic pouring, which is incredibly abstract. Take it up a notch, explore with non-visual mediums of art. For me, I experimented with crochet, and guess what? Now I crochet all the time. Entirely too much, if you ask my mum. Don't ask my mum. But the thing is, it taught me so many skills that can transfer to how I paint. Exploring new media not only expands our artistic repertoire, it also teaches us some deeper, more abstract skills such as patience, perseverance, problem solving, and adaptability. It's like a 2-for-1 deal. Yes, you are creating a wonderful new end product that you've never made before, but you are also absorbing new ideas, creating new muscle memory, and learning a new way of seeing the world that will forever change how you create. Speaking of absorbing, let's talk about the most underrated and potentially most counterintuitive tip that will genuinely help you create more art in 2025. Consume more art. Now, earlier today, I said how, as artists, our job is to create something that the world has never seen before. However, and I was talking to a friend about this a couple days ago, as humans, we are very much limited by what we already know. Every invention that humans have ever made, we've made from a combination of skills and knowledge that we were taught. It's like that quote from Newton where he said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." In other words, every innovation that we see today is essentially a modified, evolved version of something that already existed. In other words, there is no such thing as a 100% original idea that comes from no pre-existing concept, because that is simply impossible. So as a concept, originality is a bit of a misnomer, because what it really is a combination and permutation of ideas that already exist. Now, on the surface, that feels like a depressing thought, because what do you mean originality doesn't exist? That's so sad. No. This is a good thing. No, really, it is a good thing, because this means that every one of us is completely capable of original concepts. If originality isn't about just plucking out new ideas from the ether, but is instead about combining pre-existing ideas but in new and innovative ways, it means that you and I can train our brains to come up with new original ideas more and more as time goes on. How? By consuming more and more art, but being smart about it. Look, we've all got favorite artists. I would move heaven and earth to learn how to think like Peter Moorbacher does. But if we stick to consuming one type of art all the time, it can be quite detrimental because it keeps our visual library quite narrow. What you really want to do is explore. Just like with the new art medium we just spoke of, you want to go completely off kilter with the art that you look at and learn from. If your favorite artist paints semi-realistic manga, maybe take a look at traditional oil painting. If you're really into alternative, out there graphic art, maybe take a look at something like traditional embroidery. Just like we're trying out a new medium, consuming wildly varied types of art creates new neural pathways, and these ones go straight to fleshing out your visual library. And the bigger your visual library is, the more out there, completely unique, brand new original ideas you can come up with, because you are now creating links across a much wider spectrum of ideas. Just consuming more of the art that you already consume is not enough. You want to go out and explore. There is a whole world of creative inspiration out there. Go drink it in. Okay, wait, don't actually go right now. Come back, because we need to take a moment to ground into reality for a second. Because the number one reason you are not achieving your art goals is because your goal is too vague. You may have clicked on this video with an idea of what you want to achieve out of this year, but chances are your art goals sound something like this. I want to get better at art. I want to improve my painting skill. I want to paint more this year. Okay, but what does that mean? You may even think you have a specific art goal that sounds something like, I want to paint better faces this year. I want to learn how to paint lighting. I would like a 33.6% improvement in how I render values. Again, what does that mean? How do you objectively measure progress or improvement or betterness? How will you know that you've achieved your art goal? That right there is the issue. We think we have a solid, powerful art goal, but we don't even know what we're aiming for. What does it look like when you attain your art goal? What does success and progress mean? The problem is that we give our minds a vague idea of where we want to be by the end of the year, and we hope that it will fill in the gaps and do the needful. That phrase really irks me, by the way, do the needful. What is the needful? What does that even mean? Your subconscious mind cannot work off of abstraction like that. Hell, your conscious mind can't even do anything with that. We need more information. Can you point out a specific skill that you want to work on this year? Maybe there is an art style that you want to learn how to create. Psst, I know a girl who can help you with that one. In either case, the more information you can give your brain, the more dots it has to be able to connect. So when you're setting art goals, try to quantify them. Maybe something like, I will sketch 1 full page of just heads every night before bed. Or I will come up with 1 complicated, detailed, beautiful painting a month. Or if you're looking at learning goals, make yourself a little syllabus. Gather a bunch of art books and work through 1 a month. Or maybe use the first quarter of the year to work on values, the second quarter on colors, and so on and so forth. When you give yourself specific, structured, quantifiable goals, you are much more likely to achieve them. Just saying you want to paint more this year isn't enough. How many more paintings do you want to do this year? How are you going to space them out through the year? Which brings us smoothly on the final thing you want to think about when it comes to creating more art this year. What's your schedule like outside of art? Yes, I said schedule. If you say schedule, I'm sorry, we're fighting. I'll text you the time and place. You better show up. A very common hindrance to your art goals is the idea that you're gonna have to carve out specific time to paint constantly if you want to get better at painting. Now, we're all grown adults here, or mid to late teens at the very least, I hope. But it isn't always possible, with life being life, to carve out a specific time to hate. You know, there's obligations, you have school, you have work, and so on and so forth. There's a million things to do. So instead of specifically having to carve out 3 hours a week in order to paint, how can you work with your schedule? How can you make your art process so accessible that you can whip it out and paint even if you have the tiniest moment of free time? For a lot of us, this might look like bringing a sketchbook wherever you go. That's what I did in uni. Whenever I was between lectures and I wasn't hanging out with a friend or anything, I just whip out my sketchbook and pencil and draw a bunch of faces. Or if you've taken my earlier advice, which I hope you have, this might look like bringing your iPad everywhere or your drawing tablet, plugging it into a laptop. Maybe put all your project files onto cloud storage, which is this magical, mystical thing that you can access from a bunch of different computers, if that's the sort of thing you have to do all the time. If you like working with watercolors, maybe get yourself one of those tiny plein air kits that allow you to watercolor anywhere with one of those water brushes. Or if acrylic painting is your thing, maybe try acrylic markers. I know it's not necessarily the same thing, but unless you do a lot of blending, it should hopefully work just fine. The point is to make your art process as portable, accessible, and really easy to start up and put away as you possibly can. The issue with having to carve a very large chunk of painting time out of our very busy days is that it leaves you very unfocused. Think about it. Maybe you work on spreadsheets all day and then you have to spend the next 3 hours setting up a mini studio with your oil paints and your canvas and your easel, but chances are the whole time you're still thinking about that spreadsheet. And making good art requires conscious attention. You will see the biggest improvement when you are here present, and mindfully painting. So spend some time today trying to figure out how you can make your art process a lot more portable, accessible, and really quick and easy to set up and quick to put away when you're done. Not only will this allow you to paint a lot more frequently, even if it is only for small chunks of time, but you will also be able to do it mindfully because you won't be thinking the whole time about all the things you have to sacrifice in order to carve out some painting time in your day. Because at the end of the day, you want your art to make you happy. I say this all the time. I always say that art is in the process. The finished painting is a happy byproduct. The end product is for everyone else, but the process of creating it is for you and you alone. So when you decide that you want to paint more in 2025, remind yourself that it isn't about how many paintings you create this year. It's about the quality of that time that you've spent with yourself while you paint. I know it is a hard idea to internalize because we associate productivity with the quantity of the output that we've created. But that's capitalism speak. We don't do that here. In this house, we focus on emotional fulfillment and making the art process as accessible and enjoyable as possible, no matter what phase our life is in. So if that all sounds good to you and you want to create more art content with me all through this year, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and turn your notifications on so you know when I drop more cool art content next time. And if you enjoyed this video and learned something today, make sure to let me know by giving it a big thumbs up and comment below your biggest art goal for this year so we can encourage each other. You can always come say hello on Instagram, Discord, and Kara. And if you like what I do and would like to grab even more of my stuff, you can check out my Patreon for things like my custom brush kit, all of my art in 4K and 8K quality, the complete speed paints for all of my art, as well as print and merch of my work every few months. It is all up on Patreon, or you could just buy me a coffee and keep fueling my caffeine issues. As always, links to everything are down in the description below. And that's about it for this video, you guys. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. If you're not even sure where to begin with painting more this year, you can check out this video from when I dove into the 100 heads challenge and why this might be a good thing for you to dive into as well. I'll leave it here in the outro. Make sure you check it out and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye!